Sri Lanka is a beautiful island. Along with its beaches, its mountains, its forests, its wildlife, and even its historical ruins, the beauty of its wavas or water reservoirs built by ancient kings is especially wonderful. The wavas and their surroundings effuse calm and serenity. These wavas are evidence of one of the greatest hydraulic civilizations the world has ever seen. A hydraulic civilization is one which is based on the management and flow of water, and every Sri Lankan should take great pride in this great wava or hydraulic civilization and also be wowed by its history. Before describing the role and contribution of the Muslims to the wava civilization of Sri Lanka, it is necessary that we must first discuss a few details about this civilization. The first of these wavas was Abaya Wava in Anuradhapura, built by King Pandukabaya in about 300 BC. This reservoir is now known as the Basavakkulama Wava. This era of tank building turned into a great civilization that lasted around 2000 years. It ended when it went into disrepair and neglect with the arrival of the Portuguese in the beginning of the 16th century and the dawn of the colonial era. In episode 1, we learned how King Pandukabaya set aside land in Anuradhapura to accommodate these Arabs. And in episode 2, we learned how Deduru Oya and Malwatu Oya were the rivers used by these Arab traders to transport goods to and from Anuradhapura. In this episode, we look at how the Arabs traveled to other countries and empires as traders from Sri Lanka. The evidence of the great Sinhalese hydraulic civilization is all around us, especially visible in the districts of Anuradhapura and Polonnaruwa, as well as in the surrounding provinces. These wavas or reservoirs are not simple standalone rainwater collecting tanks supplying water to a few villages, but it is in fact a magnificent and complex network of giant tanks, reservoirs and canals, also known as the cascade system, supplying water to thousands of villages and enabling large areas of land to be cultivated. Our ancient kings, who were visionaries, built a sophisticated network of tanks to collect and reuse every single drop of rain the country received, allowing cultivation of land year-round and even in the dry zones. Let not a single drop of water go waste into the sea without benefiting the world, as said by King Parakramabahu, in whose reign perhaps this country reached its zenith of hydraulic development, irrigation and agriculture. The role of the Arabs in the hydraulic civilization. The hydraulic civilization of the past displays many features of a great civilization. Society was well organized with the king, his cabinet of ministers, the courtiers, the planners, the engineers, the farmers, and also the architects and the artisans. All were working together to increase food production and maintain a beautiful balance with nature and the environment. Because the tanks provided water year-round and increased agricultural production, the country was able to produce a surplus of crops, and this is where the Sinhalese kings gave the Arabs their role. Sri Lanka is an island. Right through history, it has been difficult to come to this island and also to go out of it. It is only the traders who braved the sea journey to supply goods and produce of Sri Lanka to the rest of the world. It was the early Arabs and later on Muslims who established themselves as the traders and settled down in Sri Lanka. Prosperity poured into the country when these Arab traders working for the Sinhala kings exported the surplus agricultural produce of the hydraulic era to the rulers and peoples of the Muslim empires, and this trade in turn brought great wealth to the hydraulic civilization and to the kingdom of Sri Lanka. During the hydraulic era, the Sinhalese kingdom prospered. The Isurumuniya Viharaya, Ruwanvelisaya Dagaba, Tuparama Dagaba, Abhayagiri Viharaya, Jetavana Ramaya Monastery and Stupa, Kuttam Pokuna, and even Sigiriya proclaims the enormous wealth of the kingdom. The society was not just hard-working robots, but the kings encouraged Buddhism, and the hearts of the Sinhalese populace was imbued with the philosophy of Lord Buddha. The Wewas and the connected villages show evidence of beautiful dagabas, temples, monasteries, and statues of Lord Buddha, showing us the importance the Sinhalese gave to Buddhism. In serving the Sinhala kings, these Arab traders were in fact not just traders, but were also functioning as ambassadors of Sri Lanka to the emperors and kings of other nations, and they were the connections that the Sinhalese kings used for international relations with the rest of the world. It is really interesting to note that from around the 8th century, the Muslim empire grew across the Middle East, North Africa, Southern Europe, and Central Asia. Many countries and populations became part and parcel of this Muslim empire. In this context, it becomes more interesting to realize that these Arab traders were in fact the interface between two great civilizations, the one established by the Sinhala kings of Sri Lanka and the Muslim empire. Goodwill and trade between these two great civilizations were so much in sync that no situation arose for the rulers of the Muslim empire to send missions of proselytization or missions of conversion to Islam to the great Sinhala kings or their people. This is indeed unusual when we consider that the thrust and drive of the Muslim empire was the flocking of peoples of many nations to the then new religion of Islam. In a strange way, Buddhism as practiced by the Sinhalese of Sri Lanka and Islam as practiced by the Muslims of the rising new empire seem to be working in tandem, a sort of a peaceful, harmonious partnership. Evidently, this is the only way to describe the meeting and partnering of the two great civilizations from the 7th century to the 16th century, when the Portuguese arrived and broke direct links between the Muslims of Sri Lanka and trade lines with the rest of the world. It is great to know that the Arabs played a hand in the prosperity of this phenomenal era, when what is one of the greatest hydraulic civilizations of the world was being established.